How do you know if your idea can sell? I can answer this in 2 seconds. You don't. You don't know if your idea can sell. Nobody does. I'm going to tell you a true story from my experience as a producer. It was common knowledge passed down from the forces on high that an American audience, under no circumstances, would ever watch a movie set in a foreign location without an American lead. It was common knowledge, everybody knew this. Of course, this was pre-Slumdog Millionaire, right? Before Crouching Tiger. How did they know this? They knew this because somebody high up at the company had said this. Now, we were a deficit financer, which means we actually made our money selling the rights to foreign countries. So actually, selling movies set in foreign locales was very much up our alley, and we got a lot of that stuff. But it was common knowledge that even though it was in our best interest to shoot those movies, it was just impossible. No American audience would ever be interested in a foreign movie without an American lead. And I can only imagine the hundreds of screenwriters who wrote beautiful scripts, who got passed on by us, who must have felt like, wow, I really thought I wrote a beautiful movie and I thought I got it to the right company. And I guess maybe my idea wasn't good enough. My idea didn't sell. Oh my God, maybe I'm not really a good writer. Maybe I don't really have what it takes. No, it wasn't that they didn't have what it takes, but they didn't get a beautiful letter. They got a pass letter. They got the same letter everybody else got. Well, one day, Nicolas Cage decided he wanted to shoot a movie in Italy. And his agent casually let slip a very secret rumor that everybody in Hollywood knew, which was that Nick Cage wants to do a movie in Italy. And suddenly, every producer in Hollywood, not just us, everybody was digging through these old files, searching for movies set in Italy. They're like, okay, it stars a dog. Can we turn the dog into Nicolas Cage, right? Looking at movies that they had passed on over the last 10 years. And I know because I was the guy in our files looking at those movies. I was looking at movies that I'd never even read, that had been passed on before I was even in the company, that had been completely unsellable a day before and were suddenly the hottest commodity in Hollywood. The movie he ended up making was not ours. He ended up making Captain Corelli's Mandolin. But think about that. If you want to understand Hollywood, just remember what high school was like. Imagine the most popular kids in high school, and remember how quickly the fads came in and out. I remember Z Cavaricci pants. I remember them very strongly. If you're my age group, you know what Z Cavaricci pants are. They're ridiculous looking pants. And in second grade, they were hugely popular. And I found out just a little too late, and I worked on my mom, and I begged because they were like $100 for those pants, and we were not rich. And she finally bought me those Z Cavaricci pants, and I showed up in my Z Cavaricci pants, and they were out of style.
What are
You don't even want to know. Google them. That's Hollywood. What's in style today is out of style tomorrow. And then back in style the next day. The only way that you can time Hollywood is to be a producer, which means that you're spending literally every day on the phone gossiping. That's what producers do. Their job is to know what the fad is 30 seconds ago, and 30 seconds ago, and 30 seconds ago, right? They're literally on the phone all day finding out what everybody wants now and now and now and now and now. And all it takes is one bomb or one unexpected success. Slumdog Millionaire, suddenly everything changes. A small shift in the wind for Nicolas Cage, and suddenly everything changes. 10 Years a Slave, and suddenly everything changes. 12 Years a Slave, sorry. 12 Years a Slave, and suddenly everything changes. In this year, we actually saw a lot. Dallas Buyers Club. Suddenly everything changes. American Hustle, and suddenly everything changes. We're living in a very exciting time because the changes are going in the way of good writers. Hollywood is like high school. The fads go in and out. If you don't like which way the wind is blowing, wait 10 minutes. It will blow a different direction. And that's why you never know if your idea is good enough to sell. Because good enough to sell depends on the fates matching up, that you get your right script in front of the right person at the right time when the winds are blowing in your direction. The only way that you can do that is by getting lucky. At the same time, there's some good news, which is that you don't need your movie to sell. Because that's not how careers are built anymore. It used to be that careers were built off of huge spec script sales. 80s and 90s, that's how it worked. You sold a spec script, you made a ton of money, and a lot of people are still teaching this because a lot of the people who are teaching were writing in the 80s and 90s. But that's not how this works anymore. If you look at what's happening in Hollywood, in the indie world, it still works that way. If you're an indie film, it's still all about the script. But in Hollywood, it's no longer about that. It's about something called transmedia. Transmedia is Transformers, where you're actually making a movie based on a toy used to sell toys and video games and lunchboxes and Happy Meals. And these are the projects that are in vogue right now in Hollywood. Now, there's a countercurrent happening with these little indie films, indie Hollywood films. Like American Hustle had a nice budget, but it was an indie side of things. Wolf of Wall Street, like these character-driven films, are like the response to that. Or within that world, the Lego movie. If you guys saw the Lego movie, it's actually a great movie, but it's based on a product. Most of what's happening in Hollywood now is about writers coming in to write projects that producers have thought up. In the indie world, it's different. If you're an indie filmmaker, then you can still sell a spec script, come up with a new idea. That's what indie film producers are looking for. Hollywood producers, 80% of what they're doing are called properties, which means you don't need your idea to sell. You need your idea to be good enough to get a producer to want to read it, so that they can say, man, I wish I could make this movie. I can't, but I think it's great to write the Hungry Hungry Hippos movie. Now, I'm being a little sarcastic. Not every idea that a producer has is a bad idea. Producers option great books, and they need writers to adapt them. Producers come up with brilliant ideas, and they need writers to write them. So, not every producer makes transmedia projects, right? The Wolf of Wall Street was a book, which means someone bought the book. In this case, it was Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese saying, we want to make this book into a movie. That means they have to hire a writer to write it. So even if they didn't buy your spec script, if they loved your spec script, they might call you and say, you know what, we'd like you to adapt The Wolf of Wall Street. And that is a movie for adults. We'd like you to adapt The Wolf of Wall Street. We're not making films that you came up with. We're making The Wolf of Wall Street. But we need a writer, and we liked your script. Your scripts, your two scripts. You guys with me? Okay. So the truth of the matter is you don't know if your idea can sell. Nobody knows if your idea can sell. You don't need your idea to sell. Even if you're working in the indie film world, you don't want to be part of this transmedia bullshit at all. Even if you're working in the indie film world, even if you never want to write a project that you didn't originate, you still don't need your idea to sell. You need your idea to be compelling enough that somebody wants to read it. And you need that person to finish that script and ask the question, what else have you got? You don't need it to sell. You need it to be good. Because that is the rarest thing that a producer actually gets to see. It is very, very rare that a producer gets to see a good script. So what you really need is you need a strong enough idea that can be pitched clearly enough that a producer would go, oh, that might be good, so that they'll read it, so that they can say, hey, what else have you got? Or so that they can say, hey, you might be good to write this that I actually can make.